Hello, welcome to Con Corner. Today I'm going to take one step further in our Make It Do and Use It Up series on beef. And we're going to take our leftover beef and I'm going to make some homemade dog food as a treat for my sister's big healthy dogs to put in their Christmas baskets. I'm going to make this to freeze because I haven't found any official instructions on how to can dog food, and so I want to be sure that it's very safe. It's not going to be something that they're going to eat every single day. This is a treat for them. But it's a dog food, commercial dog food wasn't even invented until about 100 years ago, and even then it was canned. Commercial dry dog food didn't come out until the 1950s, about 1956 I think it was. I remember asking my great-grandmother one time what they fed their dogs on the dairy farm that they had before she moved to town long before I was born. And she said, well, we made an extra pan of cornbread every day and then we added the meat scraps. And the meat and the table scraps is what dogs, the family dogs, have always eaten for millennia. Probably since dogs were first domesticated. So when our dogs are able to eat the same food that we eat, that's got to be pretty healthy for them. That's how they've survived all this time. Talk to your vet. Your veterinarian can guide you with your particular dog, its size, its weight, how much exercise it gets, its breed, its peculiar health problems, and with your vet you can work out a basic recipe for dog food that corresponds with the kinds of foods that you eat, so that your table scraps can then go into a portion of feeding your dogs. So what I'm going to do today is just that. Now, I know that a lot of people say that corn is bad for dogs, but I want to tell you something. We don't live in rice growing country and we don't live in wheat growing country. And so if we were raising all of our own food and trying to raise the food for our animals as well, we would be raising oats or corn as our grain product, primary grains. And in keeping with my own personal history, I've got a little leftover cornbread here that I'm going to use as a part of the component of this dog food. Dog food, from what I've read, looking at several different locations on the internet and several different university veterinarian school websites and places like that, and dog food, commercial dog food sites, dog food should have at least 50% meat and meat products, and no more than 50% of grains. So I'm not going to do 50% of grains. I'm going to do maybe 20%. This cornbread is about a cupful, and it's made the way I make cornbread with no wheat in it. It had egg, and it's stone ground cornmeal. So it's just plain pure cornmeal is what was used in it. I'm going to add. They say that sweet potatoes are really good for dogs. They have that carotene in them, and what they need, they don't need the vegetables so much as they need a little bit of fiber. So I'm going to use a little sweet potato, and which I've baked. You see how soft that is, and this is sweet potato growing country. We also can grow potatoes here, white potatoes, Irish potatoes here. And I have some leftover Irish potatoes from our dinner last night. So I'm going to put those in, some of those in with this, along with their skins, to add a little bit of fiber to help the dog's digestion. My sister's dogs are big dogs, and they're healthy and active dogs, and they have access to the outside. And they have so they're thin and they're slender, and they get a lot of activity. So we're not going to watch our fat content here because we're not dealing with sedentary inside apartment dogs. You'd want to do things a little bit different there. I've saved an eggshell. I've got plenty of protein with the meats that I'm going to use, but they say that one thing that's often lacking in homemade dog foods is calcium. And one of the best primary sources for calcium that's very natural is an eggshell. So I'm going to run that in a clean spice grinder and whip it up real fine, make a little powder out of it. Just took a second there. And there's one powdered eggshell, real fine, so that won't hurt the dogs. You know, we don't want to give dogs something that would hurt us to eat. So yes, they need to chew on raw bones, but they tell me that we shouldn't give them cooked bones. So I'm not going to put any of the bones that we cooked for making our broth and canning our meat into this, because those are already cooked, so they're not as good for the dogs. I am going to chop up a little bit of carrot here. You could use your carrot peelings. You know, those normally would go into the compost bin with the eggshells, but if you've got there we go. We're going to just put a little bit, and that beta carotene has got to be good. The lycopene that's in these red vegetables is undoubtedly good for dogs' eyes, just as it is ours. Although you can't be sure that something that's good for humans is good for dogs. For example, dogs are not supposed to have avocados. They're not supposed to have raisins. So there's a lot of things. Chocolate that is really bad for dogs. We ate liver last night, and I had some left over, and I'm not going to give them the onions. Onions are bad for dogs, but I didn't cook the onions and the liver together, although I stored them together. I cooked them separately, so the liver doesn't have any onion on it. I'd say about 5% liver or organ meats is really in a dog's diet is really good for them, and a little dab of liver every day is super healthy for them. Plus, it tastes great. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to use some of that. So I'm going to put about 1/3 cupful of liver here. I made some notes when I was doing my research, so that I'd have what I needed. I'll wash my hands. I can't stand to have stuff all over my hands. I like for them to be clean. Okay. Now then, I'm going to add. Oops, where did I get it? Okay. One of the things that's often lacking in dogs' diets that they need is they need a little iodine. And so I'm using some iodized salt, just a pinch. You know, I've talked before about a pinch, how much a pinch is. Just to be sure that they have that little dab of iodine. Pinch is what you get between your fingers there. And if you have not discovered blackstrap molasses, it is amazing. This is a pure natural product. It is what is left after sugar cane is pressed and the sugar is extracted from it. All this wonderful nutrition-rich product is left over, and it's pure and healthy. It's a huge source of magnesium, calcium, iron, copper, zinc. There are a number of trace minerals that are available from blackstrap molasses, not regular molasses, but blackstrap. It's not very sweet. It doesn't taste sweet, but it's really good for humans, and it also provides a lot of the nutrients that are very commonly missing from homemade dog foods, particularly that iron, copper, and zinc. Those are all in here. So I'm going to use just a half a teaspoon of blackstrap molasses in this little. You know, it's like with so many things, we don't want to overdo it either. You know, and I'm trying to avoid using manufactured supplements that we may not know the sources they come from. We don't know what's going on in those. But since this is not going to be a regular daily exclusive food, it's just going to be a tasty holiday meal for these folks, for these animals, friends of ours. Now, all of this meat that I'm cutting up that was left over from our steaks and our roasts, this is good edible meat. We could still eat this if we wanted to, and if we were in a more precarious situation, we might eat it. There's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing inedible about it. It's not awful. It's not stuff that was disallowed from human consumption. It's simply things that were a little bit less tasteful or less easy to chew or things like that for us. And so I'm going to cut it up into some small pieces here. I don't want the dogs to have to chew a little bit, but I don't want them to get choked on something. So, now if you want, you can take some of the fats out. I don't have a whole lot of fat left in here because I rendered most of it off for my tallow, but there's some left. And for these particular dogs, that's really healthy and good for them. All dogs need a lot more fat than you may think they do, but if they're sedentary or inside dogs, they may not need as much as they're getting. They also need a variety of fats. They need meat fats, which contain substances they can't get anywhere else, and they need a little cod liver oil or fish oils so that they get those omega-3s. They get that vitamin A and D, which they can get in cod liver oil. You can also give your dog, if you're going to feed your dogs a homemade diet, your vet may suggest that you have a vitamin you give them every day, just like we used to do with our little children until they got to where they were eating the same kind of variety of food that we were eating. See, all this is good food. Some of it would be a little bit chewy for us. That right there might be chewing gum to another generation. All right. I've been very careful when I went through here, and I touched every piece with my hands instead of just processing this with forks and such, because there were some little bitty bones that I found, little small ones, maybe that size bones that I found, and I don't want any of that in there because I don't want my family dogs to choke on anything. So
people really need to do that for themselves too, because so much meat is cut with a bandsaw nowadays. Little bits of bone dust stays on there, and you really need to rinse it.
That's a really important. See, there's one that I had not found if I weren't still handling this meat with my hands. So get your hands dirty, get in there and handle the meat, whether you're processing for yourself or your animals. That could have lodged in a dog's throat, and that is exactly what Paul's talking about. That was cut with a bandsaw, and so they just sliced through that bone in a little piece of it there, which if you were hand cutting your beef like our butchers used to do, that their knife would slide past that, and that bone wouldn't have been in there. Now what I'm going to do with all of this is I'm just going to put it on the stove and I'm going to cook it just a little bit. Let me get the rest of my meat in here, and then, okay, I've got all my ingredients in my pan, and now I'm going to add, I had some excess chicken stock that was more than I could fit into my canner, so I stuck it in, and plus it's the part that included the fat. I didn't want to waste that chicken fat, and that's really good for dogs. Oh, chicken fat's good for them. And so I saved all of that, and I don't like to use containers that I can't see in to put in the freezer. But for your dog food scraps, that's a great way to use something like this, and that way you're going to know right away what it is. All right, I've got all of that that in there, and now I'm going to cook it for a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is I'll cool it off and I'll put it in my. Okay, It's all cooked and it's cooled enough that I'm going to put it in the containers now. I'm going to reuse some of those containers that I don't, that can be thrown away when they're done. I'm labeling them as dog food before I put them in the freezer so we won't forget. But if we did forget, we could get away with this.
What are you labeling them actually?
As dog food.
What does it say on there?
It says Happy Dog Din Din.
Okay.
That's what I named it, with the date and that it contains beef. And so I hope that you'll go talk to your own vet and come up with a way to incorporate your own home foods into your dog's diet. Oatmeal is another good grain to use. In fact, oatmeal is really good for dogs. So from now on, I'm going to save our leftover breakfast oatmeal. Just remember to take the raisins out of it because that's not good for dogs. And include that maybe in the next batch that I make. All right, thank you. Have a great day.